What's going on, guys? Digidesdan here, and today I'm going to talk to you about the N64 Classic Edition. Now, it hasn't been officially confirmed, but we've had the NES Classic Edition, the SNES Classic Edition, and the only logical step would be to make the N64 Classic Edition. Now, Nintendo actually has registered a trademark for a controller-like logo sporting the N64 controller design, very similar in the style of the NES Classic Edition's logo as well as the SNES Classic Edition's logo. So that is a really good indicator as to whether or not the N64 Classic Edition is actually coming, maybe in the next year or 2 years, I don't know. Now in this video, I want to talk about 15 N64 games that I reasonably speculate will be on the N64 Classic Edition. This is not necessarily games that I want on it per se, but just realistically thinking, with 4 players, if they have 4 players available, that option available, then I think that these are the games that might be on it. Of course, the first game is Super Mario 64. Cannot go wrong with this classic. Launch title, you play as Mario in a 3D world, get through the whole game with 120 stars. There's tons of replayability, super fun, one of my personal favorites, one of my first games for N64, and really not much else to explain about it because everyone knows who Super Mario is. We have Wave Race 64. So the N64 had a great library of racing games, and this is actually one of my personal favorites. I remember actually picking it up on the first day that it came out, but I didn't know how to use a joystick, so I actually ended up returning the whole system because I didn't know how to control the players. But this is a super fun game. There's a stunt mode, there's time trial, there's races with other players, and you can also race with other people playing. So not just the AI, but people beside you as well. So this one would be a very good contender for the N64 Classic Edition. Alright, moving on with the trend of racing games, we have F-Zero X. So this is a great F-Zero game. It's high intensity, just craziness all around. There's tons of racers, you're going super fast. Sometimes you don't know where you're going, you're flying everywhere. There's tons of 3D effects, you're going all the way around the track, upside down, sideways, and all that fun stuff. I know I said that this video wasn't about the games I wanted on it, but I would not complain if this made it onto the N64 Classic Edition. Alright, and the next game I want to talk about that I think is going to be in the N64 Classic Edition, Mario Tennis. This is a great game, great tennis game, great sports game overall, and it's super fun. It's got all the different Mario characters in it. You can play a Shy Guy, you can play a DK Jr. It's very competitive, so you can play one player through a tournament, or you can also play with 4 players, doubles against each other, or just duke it out in singles. It's super fun. It was also developed with the help of Camelot, so when things get too intense, you start hearing that Golden Sun music, and so it just amps up that energy and gets you pumped for the next set. And you cannot go wrong with Star Fox 64. This one is an absolute classic. This game, great game, is packed in with the Rumble Pack. I do not know if they're going to do the Rumble feature in the N64, since this was such a big deal when it came to Star Fox 64. This is a great game. It holds up very well, and the fact that they had Star Fox and Star Fox 2 on the SNES Classic Edition just means that the next logical progression is they're gonna have Star Fox 64 on the N64 Classic Edition. Alright, and on the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, we found rare titles, so like titles published by Rare that made their way onto the Super Nintendo Classic Edition. And so of course, there was tons of rare games that were made for the N64, and they were all great as well. And this one includes a great classic, Banjo Kazooie. This one, I'm sure they can find a license for it. It's a great 3D platformer, and very similarly, I'm going to show this at the same time, Donkey Kong 64. You really cannot go wrong with these two when you're building an N64 library. And when you think of an N64 library, if you're thinking about having a plug-and-play system for the N64, these two games, I think that recently they're going to be on the N64 Classic Edition. And for the most part, these are going to be staple titles, staple N64 games that you need for any N64 library, classics, bestsellers, player choice, that sort of thing. And of course, with that, we have the 2 Legend of Zelda games. So, Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, I do not know which version they're going to put on it, because there are actually different ROMs available for this game that affected type of gameplay, glitches and I don't know, just certain aspects of it. And of course, to go along with Ocarina of Time, we have Majora's Mask. Another classic, you know, is originally developed as, you know, additional content for Ocarina of Time, but it just became, I don't know, so massive that they had to make an entirely different game out of it. So of course, I think that with the story and with the history of Majora's Mask, it definitely has to make it onto the N64 Classic Edition alongside Ocarina of Time. Better yet, I think it would be great if they could find a way to get the Master Quests, the Ocarina of Time Master Quest ROM onto the N64. That'd be awesome. Alright, next up we have Yoshi's Story. Super fun, super cute platformer. Yoshi does not have enough love for, I don't know, his or her individual games. I don't know, this one is great. If you loved Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, this one is very similar. It's got 3D graphics, it's very cute, it's got storybook kind of animation. I personally love this one a lot. You can play as multiple different colored Yoshis, you collect fruit, there's lots of different puzzles and platforming, and it's just a really great game overall. I believe that this game deserves more love, and it will find its way onto the N64 Classic Edition. Alright, we've mentioned a lot of Mario titles, Donkey Kong, as well as Star Fox. Now, we need to show Kirby some love. So Kirby 64, the Crystal Shards, fantastic game. It is a platformer. I think it translated really well with the 3D graphics, and the great thing about this game is the fact that not only can you copy abilities, you can take those copied abilities, throw them at your enemies, and combine those abilities. So it's got a really cool mechanic that you don't normally see in other Kirby games, and it tells a story, it gets you engaged, and I think this is a great contender for the N64 Classic Edition. Alright, and you cannot have 4 players on an N64 without this game here. Mario Kart 64, almost everyone's favorite, almost in everyone's N64 library. This is the game if you want to, you know, go up against your friends, if you want to race them. You're battling out in the battle arena, or you're throwing at them banana peels, red shells, just to get into the lead. I don't know. There's something about this game just brings out that competitiveness in people, and if they especially have 4 players or 4 controllers for the N64 Classic Edition, there's absolutely no way that this game will not make it onto that system. Alright, and following that 4-player pattern, we have a classic here. It's Mario Party 2. And the reason I chose Mario Party 2 over Mario Party 1 is just mostly because Mario Party 1 was great. It got people hooked onto that board game genre. You know, the mini games were great, but it was with Mario Party 2 where they really stepped up their game with the creative mini games. You got the 2v2, you got the 1v3, you got the 4 free-for-all. I was gonna say 4v4, but we don't have 8-player Mario Party yet. Get on it, Nintendo. But this game really took off. They got great games like Bumper Ball, you got the Fire Jump Rope, you got just tons of other mini games that were classics and people will remember for years and years. It really brought out that competitiveness and got all 4 players onto the N64 and just really battling out, you know, trying to beat your friends and just having a good time while that was happening. Right, and you cannot mention battling on the N64 with 4 players without bringing up Super Smash Bros. The original, the classic, the one that started it all. You can now find Super Smash Bros. Games at EVO, giant, huge fighting game tournaments with huge jackpots. It's become a huge cult following. This is a fantastic game, and there's no way it won't make it onto the N64 Classic. And the last game that I think is going to make it onto the N64 Classic Edition, Paper Mario, the original, of course, because we're talking about N64. This is a very, very charming RPG game. It took a lot of elements from Super Mario RPG, just features and you know, timing-based attacks that you could find in Super Mario RPG, which was a great classic on the Super Nintendo, and just took them and just implemented them into this very, very charming game. It's fun, aesthetically it's very pleasing, the music is great, and I personally don't think that the N64 has the greatest library of RPGs, but this is definitely a great RPG, and I believe that it's going to make its way onto the system. And so for this video, I only chose 15 games, and that's because with the NES Classic Edition, they had 30 games. Moving on to the Super Nintendo Classic Edition, they only had 21 games. And with these games being bigger, you know, having better graphics, I feel like it would be Nintendo's intentions to lower that game count just so they can produce a system that runs smoothly and well and without any issues, essentially. So I only chose 15. There may be more, there may be less, I don't know. But those were the 15 games that I chose and I believe would reasonably make it onto the N64 Classic Edition. I do have one game, and you're probably thinking, why wasn't this game on the list? It has an honorable mention. The game is 007 Goldeneye, and it has an honorable mention. I didn't add it onto the list that because although it is a great multiplayer game, great party game for 4 players, it is rated teen. There's a lot of gun violence, there's blood in it. I don't know if Nintendo wants to put it on their system. You know, there's a lot of fake blood on the NES and the SNES, but when it came to the N64, things got a lot more realistic, and so I'm just not sure if Nintendo would want that on their system, especially if they want to cater to the mass, to the general audience, to the little kids as well as the adults. So those were my choices for the N64 Classic Edition library. Like I mentioned earlier, these are games that I reasonably suspect would make it onto the system, not necessarily games that I personally want. Like I would want like Snowboard Kids, because that's a great game for parties. You know, if you like Mario Kart and you like snowboarding, Snowboard Kids is your go-to. You know, there's a bunch of other ones that I would choose as well. You know, I love Bomberman 64. That would be a great party game, especially with 4 players. But I just don't know if they would get the licenses to put them on there, or if they have a big enough popularity or following to make it onto the system. I could talk about all the games I love all I want and all day. But if you want to hear that, let me know. And actually, let me know what you guys want. So if you guys want other games, or if you disagree with me, just let me know down below. You know, if you got a different opinion, talk about it, and we'll see what happens once the N64 Classic Edition actually comes out, if it comes out. If you did like this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. Please check out some of my other videos. I got great things over there. You know, pickup videos, tips and tricks, you know, unboxing streams, and all that fun stuff. So with that being said, we'll see you guys on the next one.